And on that kind of note or sentiment, I want to talk about the augment system reveal for the fighter. Nerror posted this on the forums asking, how do you feel about the augment system reveal from the fighter stream? And he puts a timestamp link in there for the 4K video. And Steven mentioned the augment system and said that the skill tree with the skill specs is foundational for the augment system. At around 1844 in the 4K fighter video on YouTube, he starts talking about augments and tells us that augments are essentially skill specs that can alter the skills a bit more radically than regular skill specs. He mentions one of the whirlwind skill specs as an example of what an augment could be. Excuse me. I hope that augments are a bit more impactful than that specific skill spec, though. From the wiki, augments can affect a multitude of things and can, in some cases, create entirely new skills, such as drastically changing the ability itself, change the damage type and value, change the cooldown period, change the distance of the skill, change the effect of the from a range to a melee ability. What are your thoughts on that? That's crazy.
I am a little bit concerned about the augment system. I do love it. I think it's important. They're going to have to really make them, I think, a little bit more different than they're actually making them right now. I fear that this is a poor man's ancestral system from Arcage, if you guys played Arcage at all.
I didn't play it, but
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to change them enough with doing what they're talking about to create that. Why do I want to, how is it really going to affect this other class? Like, for example, I can see for a fighter, if you're going to take the fighter archetype and you're going to be a rogue as a secondary, which should, if I'm correct, be a shadow blade. So the fighter has that long line of rupture, where the one that makes the guy bleed out like a whole, gallon of blood or whatever. Anyway, the rogue ability will probably have some more bleed damage that will go with that. So those two might couple very well together. But is there going to be enough with their augment system to really separate classes? That's what I'm concerned about. So
I feel like there will be, but Virtek, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of recovering from being dizzy on the augment
Dizzy?
The augment thing, because throughout time, unless I'm completely misremembering everything, it's gone from it's going to completely change the skill to no, it's just going to augment it a little bit and do a couple things. It's not going to like drastically change the ability. And then today it's it's going to drastically change the ability, like spelled out like that.
Yeah, I want to believe that it's going to be some robust system, and with their tech, I mean, they should be able to do that. But I mean, I think Curian came up with the number of augments. It's like over 8,000, something like that they have to do for all the classes. It's a ridiculous amount of augments. Not to mention the secondary schools, like ones you're going to get from the Scholars Academy and the Thieves Guild and stuff like that, and the other schools that you're going to be able to get them from. That's a lot of augments. How are you going to make those all impactful? I fear that some classes are just going to fall by the wayside. So
yeah,
I hope I'm wrong.
I could see that.
I hope I'm wrong, but
hello, Mad Hatter.
What do you think, Chibi?
I think that honestly, I like the versatility, because at the end of the day, the augments aren't just something random. They're something that you get to choose for the most part. But also remember that some augments come from weapons. I just attacked my microphone. Remember that some augments come from weapons and stuff like that. But I don't know. I like it because I was sitting here wondering, like, if I'm a cleric secondary, how is my cleric secondary going to affect something? So that being the thing that changes the damage type to maybe holy damage would be interesting. Or like a rogue secondary could be something that changes something to melee, perhaps from range. I don't know. I think that it adds a lot of uniqueness. I feel like if anything, it creates more opportunities to be unique within your class.
So is a healer bard going to just, since he's a bard on the secondary and they give mana back, so he's just going to be able to keep giving himself mana back and just heal all the time. I'm very concerned about healers in Ashes. I'm not going to lie.
Why?
Well, one, just the history of healers in general lately over in recent MMOs. They've been compared to older MMOs, which I'm not sure which ones you guys have played, but compared to older MMOs, they are been far too powerful. You should not need 5 people to kill one healer. That should never happen. And watching that caravan video, and I think most people would be able to agree with me, having a whole raid attack Chibi, and yet she's still alive for 10 seconds, made me wonder that it's in the same place that it was in Alpha 1, which I would believe that you would all agree with me that healers then were also extremely overpowered. But yet, we knew we're not balancing yet.
Yeah.
But here we are almost in Alpha 2, and yet it doesn't look like they've changed.
Well,
So,
they don't have anything to balance against. They're just finally getting the fighter out.
Not
They're
yet,
just finally
but
getting the ranger out, you know?
this is just something that's it's been bothering me from a lot of games. Let's look at New World healers. Just look at that as the most recent example.
Before you go too far down the rabbit hole looking at all the different healers, think about what you're balancing a healer against.
Yeah.
Like if the healer's going to fight against a fighter, and if they were to both go toe to toe and just do all out damage, the fighter is going to take 5 to 10, maybe 15% of his life damage, and the healer is going to be laid out.
Hopefully,
Done.
if the fighter's ability, which is to reduce the healer's healing by up to 50%.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. If the healer doesn't do any healing, just goes full out damage, they're going to get 15% of the fighter's health down, and the fighter is going to just wipe the floor with the healer in that time.
I just want them to
if the
have.
healer, their only resort is to keep themselves alive, why not?
I think
let them be strong enough to keep themselves alive against 3 people.
I come from the school where, like, let's say Dark Age of Camelot, if you were a healer and you were running out there in the open world by yourself, you were dead. You couldn't, because the way they work is they had interruptions when you cast. How can you quote, if we're getting immersive, how can you quote chant your heal if someone's popping you in the mouth? You know what I'm saying? If someone's stabbing you, how are you supposed to do that? There's got to be either some kind of interrupt to the cast bar. There has to be a silence mechanic, a stun mechanic, a kick to the noogies, something. But not for everybody, just for a few classes. I still want healers to be strong because I want them to be played. It's going to be important that they're in groups. Same with bards. I hope bards are very instrumental in group play. I just don't want them overpowered. I don't want to see, but if you're out there, right, and you have some healer that's gathering the best ore in the world, and you want it, but you can't get it because even if you attack him and get corrupt, you don't have 5 friends to help you kill him. So it shouldn't be like that. If you're a rogue per se, you should be able to go snuff that sucker. But
yeah, but then if you look at it the other way around, if there's a fighter running around in the fields all alone by himself, he's dead. Does that sound right?
He's dead to who?
But you ask, but to who? But if a healer's running around on their own, they're definitely dead.
If he got the jump on him. But
why would that be a good thing to be able to say that the healer is going to die if they're running around on their own? Why would that be a good balance? But any other fighter, like when I say fighter,
a healer is a support. Yes, a support. It's not a DPS. It's not a tank. It's a support. That's the role we have to look. So yeah, technically, but we have to look. Stephen claimed that it would be rock, paper, scissors. Yes. So what is the rock and the paper and the scissors to a healer? What can kill a healer? Nothing. Question.
We haven't gotten
what could a healer kill is the bigger question.
But see, you say that, but a lot of times, especially if they have a damage ability, they can outlast the other guy. They'll sit there and heal him and hit them and outlast them together.
I think that is absolutely fair. As a person who's played nothing but healers in every single MMORPG I've ever played, that is absolutely fair. There are games like World of Warcraft where I played Holy Priest, where I absolutely 1000% needed Virtek to be with me because I would not last fighting mobs on my own. The cleric in Ashes of Creation is like the D&D cleric. It can wear plate mail. It uses a mace. It is not in the back line, it is in the front line. Thus, a cleric in Ashes of Creation being able to stand its own ground makes sense in Ashes of Creation. It's the way that it's built.
That's one of the things that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
With the fighter having things like reducing healing, that means that he can hit me with that and I can be fighting him, but I'm not going to heal myself as well. And at that point, it's a race against my mana, which is then a race against my health, because as soon as my mana's out, I can no longer heal myself. As soon as I can no longer heal myself, I'm a sitting duck.
But see, what you said just a second ago, I think what a healer being a little less able to take care of himself against DPS classes, okay, is important in Ashes because it brings that group play. They need DPS, just like they need tanks to be able to keep the aggro off of them so they can heal. I think it all works together where they need each other, and that's a good thing.
Consider this. What I'm describing is a cleric primary, cleric secondary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The way that the secondary augments, the way the secondary augments adjusts the augmentation of the primary cleric will change how well it's able to sustain itself.
Yeah. If you're doubling down on the cleric, they should be pretty good. They should be pretty good. Now, here's a question that you brought up. I got a question for one of the things you brought up as far as armor. You're talking about wearing plate armor. We don't know yet what kind. We know that we can wear any kind of armor, but will there be restrictions with those armors? No. And should there be? Do we know that for a fact? Because Arcage, there was restrictions on plate, and there was they gave you bonuses and minuses basically, so it would affect your mana with plate armor.
I think it would be like that. I don't think there'd be restrictions
on plate armor. Everyone will wear plate. Why wear the other ones?
Because plate can probably protect you better, but cloth will probably give you better mana.
What's the negative?
That's what I'm saying.
What's the negative of plate?
So, do you know what the negative of plates is? The negative of plate
magic resistance.
Is magic.
Magic resistance, but it should affect mana regen as well.
It probably could if you augment it, right? But we don't know that yet. That's something we have.
Well, I mean, it's without any augment, it's just a base stat. You know, like a base buffer. Like if you have 4 pieces of plate on, it gives you a set. So, which is again from Arcage.
Right, stamina and speed as well, Surgeon.
Haven't they mentioned something about crafters of sufficient skill being able to make an effort to change out the stats or something?
I'm not sure.
Make them more desirable?
Yeah, I'm not sure. That would be nice as far as stats, but whether they're talking about those kind of stats, I don't know. These are like set bonus stats that, and this is again, the only reason I bring this up is because it's from Arcage, which was a huge influence from Steven. So, and I am worried that if the negatives aren't enough for wearing plate, then everybody's going to wear plate, and then you're not going to.
I really don't.
And the mages are going to love that.
Exactly.
Mages are going to love that.
So, and do we really want to? Do we really want to go that? I mean, I think faster mana regen and possibly even some movement speed might be better with cloth. It would make sense, right?
Right. I think that the way that you can create gear in Ashes and the way that you can affect how that gear has with the augments, the way that you choose it to maybe have a mana pool option with it being leather, maybe leather for your build is better. It comes down to what does the gear give you and what are you trying to go for?
Yeah.
If you're going for pure mana pool, sure, you might have a lot of mana, but maybe you're not as good at like, adjusting that mana or like handling that mana, right? Like, what is the biggest issue with a lot of World of Warcraft or other like mana based, like any role? It's that if you don't know how to manage your mana, you are out of mana a lot.
And we do know that he's. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Fred.
There's also something else to keep in mind. There's only going to be so many stats you can fit on any one piece of gear, and you can add that up between all the other gears. And let's say that there are like 7 or 8 prime stats, and then there's like however many waterfall, let's call it 10 waterfall stats, like the crit, etc. So there are, let's call it an even 15 just for number's sake. There are 15 different possibilities, and you can only fit 3 on a piece of armor, or 4 on a piece of armor, or even 5 on a piece of armor. That means you're missing 10.
Right.
You're missing 10 possibilities. So you're choosing which direction you want to focus or adapt to.
These
Yeah.
the stats I'm talking about are not on your armor. These would be from bonus from wearing the armor itself. It has nothing to do with what's on the armor. This would be a static. If you're wearing 4 pieces of this set or 7 pieces of this set, this is the bonus you will receive. This is what's going to happen. So again, I'm flying by drawing straws here. I don't know if that's the way it's going to be, but if that's the way it was in like an Arcade, and I believe they're going to have some kind of a similar system to prevent people from wearing all plate.
Final thing on this before I move us to a different topic. Sun Method says this speculation doesn't give Intrepid enough credit. Everything will have trade-offs, and I agree 1000% with that.